All righty, guys. Welcome back to iCoach Nutrition Radio. Today, I have a very special guest, somebody that I've had the pleasure of working with now over the last year. And she's getting ready to graduate iCoach University. So as I always do with graduates, I love to bring them on the podcast here so that y'all can kind of hear their journey and hopefully, be able to learn from their experience here and be able to hopefully transfer some of that knowledge into your own life, and hopefully some of it applies to you. So without further ado, Miss Gay, how are you, my friend? What's going on? Happy Friday.
Thank you. I'm doing excellent. Very excited to be on the podcast.
I'm excited to have you. So for the listeners here, tell them a little bit more about yourself, just so that they can there'll be some people that can see us here and then some that are just listening. So tell them just a little bit more about you, what you do. You're a teacher, how old you are, just some of the simple background, and then we'll kind of start diving into your journey.
I'm a teacher. I've been teaching 39 years. I'm getting ready to retire. Woohoo! I'm 62 years of age and been married 31 years. Oh, good grief. And I have 2 kids.
That's awesome.
Grown. Thank God.
That's awesome. I love it. So let's take it back before we started working together about a year ago. But kind of to walk us through just the 10,000-foot view of your journey with nutrition and fitness before we started working together. Where were you kind of at with nutrition and fitness before we met, and also why did you kind of reach out in the first place? What were you looking for?
Well, in my 20s, as we've talked about, I was a competitive bodybuilder. Back in the day, to where there weren't really any trainers or nutritionists to help me with it, I just read a lot, lifted weights, followed the nutrition plan, did some competitions. But then as I got older, got into the real life teaching, married, having kids, I kind of fell off the wagon. I always exercised, but my nutrition was never on point. Even though I knew what to do for all those years, I just could not bring myself to go back to that. I was really hesitant to go back to that. When my weight got really out of control, I would do really crazy things. I had the lap band done, and I lost a lot of weight with that. But then my body began to feed on itself, right? It just started shutting down because I wasn't getting enough nutrition in. And I was, regurgitating it back up. So even though I got down to the weight I wanted to get to, I was very unhealthy. So I had to go in and have that removed. And then I slowly gained the weight back. And when I got back up to 210 pounds, I went the ideal protein route. And again, I lost the weight, but it was difficult. I was hungry. I was tired. I had no energy. And I lost the weight within about 6 months. I lost 56 pounds. But then again, when I went back to normal eating, the weight began to slowly come back on. And I wasn't feeling as good. And so at that time, I had a friend that was going to a different nutritionist. And I said, okay, I'm going to look for a nutritionist. I need to figure out how to deal with food. I need to figure out what I can do for long term, for the rest of my life, to stay healthy and have a manageable, weight, have a realistic weight. Because also in my past, I had been bulimic and anorexic. So I've always had a very unhealthy relationship with food. And so I was tired of the roller coaster ride. I didn't want to go back and eat packaged food. I couldn't stand the thought of drinking another protein drink or another, protein bar. I just couldn't face it. It was just overwhelmed. I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to figure out a way to change my relationship with food and to live a healthier lifestyle. So I Googled you, I found you, called you up. We had our conversation. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be harder. It's not going to be a quick fix, because it's always easier to have somebody tell you exactly what to eat, when to eat it, and how much to eat it, because you don't have to think about it. Well, that's not real life, and it doesn't work long term.
Amen, sister. Man, so there's obviously a lot to kind of a lot to kind of break down there, but it's been an interesting last year, right? As we've talked about many times now, we essentially we worked together for 6 months, and then we ended up working together again for 6 months, kind of back to back there, right? And we've kind of talked about what that first 6 months was about, and then we've kind of talked about what like the second 6 months was about. So knowing the history now for the listeners, as we start going through this journey, let's kind of like start breaking down the last year. So first off, like before we obviously we had that discovery call, right, where I try to paint the picture as best as I can, right? But even then, right, I mean, what did you expect, right, out of that first 6 months? I mean, what did you think that first 6 months was going to entail? And then what ended up happening? What did you end up getting out of it?
Well, I really kind of thought you'd give me a food list and tell me what to eat and when to eat it. And then it didn't turn out that way, right? I had to, log my food, measure my food. Everything was available to me. And at first it was a little overwhelming because everything was available to me. For years, I had not eaten fruit because I had insulin issues, and I was really scared to start eating fruit. But once I started adding it back into the diet, right, and having the exercise and the protein with it and the right portions and things like that, I didn't have all the adverse effects that I thought I was going to have with my insulin. It was definitely a challenge because I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. When I'm stressed out, I want enchiladas, ice cream, those kinds of things. And so I really had to wrap my mind around everything's available, but everything within limits, portions, the 80-20 lifestyle, that type of thing. I didn't have to be perfect, but, I needed to deal with, having a wide variety of food. And that mentally was a little difficult. Now, I would say the first 6 months, I think I did get over that, and I did have a much better relationship with food. I wasn't so reactive. If I had a bad day at school, I didn't drive through Roses and get a plate of enchiladas, like I might have in the past. So that aspect of it was gone. But then we began to deal with the job loss and things like that, injuries. And so, I had those things to deal with as well. But the first 6 months, I thought were really productive as far as getting my relationship under control with food. I don't fear it anymore. I don't stress out anymore with it. If I mess up on one meal, I don't mess up the next one. Where in the past, it would have been all or nothing. Okay, well, I've already messed up at lunch. I might as well keep it going and just start over the next day. Or I've messed up this week. I just might as well keep it going and just start over on Monday. I don't have that kind of mindset anymore.
Well, and I think that's something for, so many people listening to this right now, that is a big deal, right? Because there's so many people that they come to a coach wanting to lose weight, right? Which, don't get me wrong, if your goal is weight loss, of course, I want to help you accomplish that goal. But so often, if the history has been similar to what we just described there, a lot of the times your body doesn't even feel ready, or it doesn't even feel safe to be able to do it. And you don't even have the relationship with food or with your body or with weighing yourself on the, or with, any of these things to be in the right spot to be able to make those changes. And so a lot of the process in the beginning, regardless of the timeline, is to start to make sure that we do have a healthy relationship with food and with your body and with the process and with the journey. And that we start to kind of paint the picture as to like, hey, there's not an end date on this, right? We, like you said from the very beginning, it's like we're really trying to build out something here that is actually sustainable for the rest of your life, right? And, I think that that's something that is really, really hard for people because, sometimes, you might lose weight along the way, but sometimes the focus should actually be in just learning how to actually live a healthy lifestyle, right? And if weight loss comes out of that, that's great. But we have to teach you how to live a healthy lifestyle, because regardless of whether you lose weight or not, that's what you're going to have to do for the rest of your life, right? And most of the time, whether it, as the saying goes, it's like whether it takes you 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, right? You're going to be looking back and you're not going to really care about how long it took you to get there. You're just going to care that you actually got there, and more importantly, that you actually stayed there, right? And you stayed there in a way that you enjoy your life. It actually improved the quality of your life rather than feeling like you're a prisoner of some diet or whatever there, right? So
Yes. Yes.
I love that. That's awesome. So and I guess even before we dive into I guess that second 6 month period of time there was a few things that you came to me with, right? That I definitely want to highlight, which is we had the high blood pressure, right? We had the cholesterol issues, and then we had the insulin resistant issues, right? So we touched on this a little bit before we started the podcast, but can you just kind of like share, with the listeners here, what you shared with me kind of before we got started?
Well, I've been on blood pressure medicine since I was 21. So genetically, I'm just predisposed to that. And then when I got into my mid 50s, late 50s, I began to have insulin resistance. And so, and high cholesterol. So they had put me on medication, which had helped, right? But then once I started the diet, for instance, my insulin, I could never get it below 21, even with the medication. And your insulin has to be below 10, because what happens, your body produces so much insulin. At some point in time, if you don't keep it under control, you'll become a full-on type 2, type 1 diabetic. So even with the medication, I couldn't get it below that 21, 22. Once I started the diet and adding more fruits and vegetables and it becoming more balanced, and once I started adding, more consistent with the exercise, I've always exercised, but becoming more consistent, I was able to get those numbers down. My insulin now is below 10. My blood pressure is extremely well. In fact, they cut my medication down to just half a pill. And my cholesterol, although the medication brought it down, the exercise brought it down even more. I hang out around 130, 140. Now, the great thing about this is that's a great number, but I've never been able to raise my good cholesterol. And it's very important to have that, be at that 50 with that good cholesterol. But since I started the diet, the exercise, I've been able to raise that cholesterol up, that good cholesterol up to where it's supposed to be. Genetically, I'm predisposed to this stuff, and, it is what it is. So even though I may have to continue to take the medicine, being on the diet and exercising has actually made the medication work better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that it's encouraging for those that are listening, right? Because sometimes we hear some of these things, right? And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not even a registered dietitian, but but we can help to understand these things in a way without being, essentially fear mongering into, severe restriction, right? Like, for example, just with the fruit conversation, right?
Yes.
I mean, you eat fruit, whereas before you weren't eating fruit, right? And so it's like you see these improved insulin resistance. You see these, you see these improved, markers of health, right?
Yes.
When there are plenty of people out there that are saying, hey, you need to never eat fruit, fruit's the devil,
Yes.
don't eat sugar or whatever, right? So,
and I will tell you, when you told me to eat fruit, I was very stressed out. It really stressed me out. I had to really trust. And I just would almost break out in hives anytime I would put fruit on my plate and eat it. So once I got the blood work back and it showed that my insulin had dropped even more, I was like, freedom, right? I don't have to cut out something I love. I don't need to eat 6 plates of it every day, but I can add it into my diet, right? I don't have to cut anything out. you know. So that was a big eye opener. But I will tell you, I was sweating bullets. I don't know if you remember me texting you back and forth, texting you saying, I'm really stressed out about this. I haven't eaten fruit in 5-6 years. And I just don't know that I can do it. And so you just said, just try it, see what happens. And, we got the confirmation back with the blood work that it was all good.
Wow. I mean, isn't that amazing, right? I mean, I think it's just like, I see this all the time, right? Maybe somebody's doctor tells them that they need to cut out gluten, or they need to cut out, dairy or soy or whatever, fruit, whatever it may be there, right? And to be honest, it's like there are some situations where, yes, you may need to, cut it out completely, or at least really minimize it. But for most people, like on the gluten piece, for example, like unless you're actually diagnosed with celiacs, like you shouldn't have to, completely remove that from your diet there. So it's like, it's understanding some of these things, because without understanding, right, and with lack of awareness, with lack of knowledge, you can really create even more unhealthy relationships with food. Right. And I just think it's interesting as a point to highlight too, it's like there's so many people that are maybe, scared of things like sugar that's in fruit, or GMOs or gluten or soy or whatever, but then they like still drink alcohol, or like they still eat, and enjoy, like on those times where they stress eat, or when they, they just say screw it, or when it's the weekend or whatever, and they go and eat whatever. It's like, it's like, that's what our conversation was, right? One of them at least was like, okay, well, we're scared to eat fruit, but yet we're over here eating, whatever on Saturday night.
Enchiladas.
Exactly. So it's like, look, if you were over here being like 100% crazy strict and never eating anything bad, and you were scared of fruit, maybe you had an argument there. But like, it's just like, I think at the end of the day, right, what we've really established there in that first 6 months was like, hey, with freedom and flexibility, comes discipline, comes responsibility. Like you should be able to eat every last thing that you want to eat, right? You should be able to have a healthy relationship with food, and that food is food, right? And not having to, rely on a list of this is good, this is bad, you can have this, you can have that.
Right.
Like that's not freedom. That's not flexibility, being strapped to that, right? You're imprisoned. Right. And so if you want the freedom and flexibility like everybody should have, right, you just have to build the awareness, right? You got to be able to build the awareness, the education around what works best for you, right? What allows you to feel your best, to look your best, perform your best. And that takes time to learn. But if you're open to the process, right, you have an opportunity to really start to build, that lifestyle, right, that you dream of. So
Yes, I would agree with that.
I think that if I took, nothing against any of these other companies or whatever, but like, it's like if I took something like Ideal Protein, right? Or if I took something like getting lap band surgery done, or if I, it's just like all of these things are either, a quick fix that get, quick results or whatever. It's almost like a Band-Aid over, putting a Band-Aid instead of addressing the root cause, the root of the problem. And none of the things are sustainable, right? I think the last time I checked, I can't remember if it was Ideal Protein or Optavia, but it was $400 a month. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, this thing is $400 a month. My coaching for one-on-one is $400 a month. I'm like, I should be charging twice as much as this. I mean, this is insane.
Yeah, it's actually more than that, depending on how much food you get, and how many snacks you get. It was crazy expensive. It was crazy expensive. And, but I don't have any long lasting results. Right. So I just took that money and just threw it away because, I didn't gain all the weight back. I gained about 25, 30 pounds back, but still what a waste. And my mindset was no different.
Right. Well, it's almost like, I think of like the Indian giver, right? That like gives you something and then asks for it back, right? It's kind of like, that's what these diets are. They like give you weight loss, but then they take it back, right? So that's one thing that I would love to ask is like, if you think about, all of these diets or programs that we've tried, up into this point, and then now you think about, I hate the word diet, but like, if you think about like what you're doing, how you're living your life now from all the aspects of, all the pillars of health, like, is what you're doing now actually sustainable for the rest of your life? Because I think that's the biggest question, or that's the biggest hurdle that we haven't been able to, overcome there up into this point, essentially.
Yeah, yes, because the athletes play was such an eye opener for me because I can go anywhere and make an athlete's play. If I have to go to an event or go to someone's house, I can always figure out an athlete's plate. And what I've started doing is calling ahead, saying what's on the menu, right? And so I pre-plan it before I even go. If I know that we're going to do a family celebration and we're going to go out to eat, I will either call the restaurant and see what's in the steak or whatever I'm going to eat, ingredients, things like that, or I'll look on the menu. But another thing I do when I go to the restaurant, and even though I have picked out what I'm going to eat ahead of time, I will ask them, how was this prepared? Did you use goose fat? Did you use, olive oil? Did you use butter? Those kinds of things. Because what I found when I was putting it into the habit tracker, I wasn't including all those things. So even though I thought I ate X amount of calories, I was actually eating way more than that. So I learned to ask those questions, and I just decided I wasn't going to be embarrassed about it. Hopefully they don't spit my food, but, I just wasn't going to be embarrassed about it because this is the rest of my life. I've lived more life than I have life left. So I want what's left to be quality. I'm not a grandmother yet. I really want to be a grandmother. When my kids see fit to finally do that for me, I want to be active and healthy and able to do those things that my grandmother did with me. So yes, this is sustainable. Anywhere I go, whether I cook at home or I get caught somewhere else, I can figure out something to eat according to the athlete's plate.
I love that. That's amazing. And just for the listeners here, the athlete's plate or the iCoach plate, or it's probably mentioned as a million different things out there, but what is that, just for the listeners, right? What's that breakdown look like?
Well, it's a portion of protein, I guess about, a fistful of rice, and then 3/4 of your plate is fruits and vegetables. So if you break it down, a fourth protein, a fourth some type of carbohydrate, and then the rest is vegetables and fruits and vegetables. So you're really eating way more of the fruits and vegetables, right, than you would the protein, your 4 ounces or 6 ounces of protein. But like I said, I can make that plate anywhere. I can go to Whataburger and make that plate, if I get caught somewhere like that.
Where there's a will, there's a way, right? But
Exactly.
I think that confidence of being able to know that, hey, like when I go out to eat, 99% of the time, it's not hard to eat healthy when I go out to eat. It is hard though to make the healthy decision when you go out to eat, and you don't always have to make the healthy decision, right? But the majority of your decisions when it comes to eating should be in line with health and with living a healthy lifestyle, right? And that's kind of where that 80-20 breakdown kind of starts to come into play. But I think, if you think about, oh, I'm doing keto, or, oh, I'm doing ideal protein, or, oh, I'm doing this, or, oh, I'm doing that, right? A lot of these diets out there, you don't have that confidence with it, right? Because again, you're following a set, list of foods. I'm doing Whole30. Well, you're screwed when you go to Mexico or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of these things are just there. You can do them when the time is right, when everything's perfect, when it allows you to do that. But most of the time when life happens, right, that's when you end up like falling off. And so that's where I want to kind of transition into this next point, which is, we learned a lot about stress through this journey, right? There's a lot of different things that happened. COVID happened, right? There's a loss of a job there. There was injuries. There was the stress of school and being a teacher during COVID, right? I mean, so if we think to ourselves, right, the period when you're in school versus what we've just experienced here in the summer, right, through these last few months, can you talk a little bit about just how you've learned, to really prioritize stress management and how stress actually affects nutrition and training and sleep and all of these other things that we're trying to, work on being consistent with in order to reach our goals?
Well, teaching in COVID was very stressful. You do not get a break from the kids. You may love your students, but sometimes you got to get a break from them. They're with you pretty much 24/7. You work longer hours because you're not only dealing with the students in your class, you're making plans for students that are online. So you've got double the work. The stress of, losing a job during COVID, my husband and, trying to figure out the financial situations. I had to give up some gym memberships and things like that. I was able to hang on to one. And just that constant fatigue, that mental, emotional fatigue. I had always really prided myself on being a very disciplined person, right? And organized. And I really struggled with that during the first part of the second 6 months. I sustained a back injury, which kept me out of the gym for about a month. Stress a lot of times played havoc with my stomach. So, I wasn't consistent with working out. I wasn't consistent with my calories, just depending on what was going on. I was eating out a lot, just because I was calling Wilmer and say, hey, meet me at the restaurant. I need to eat and I need to go back to work, that kind of thing. And so it was a real struggle at the beginning. I really struggled with it. I wasn't sleeping as well. And when I don't sleep well, I don't make good decisions. I will give in to those cravings a little bit more. And so, the first 3 months of that was a real struggle. And then I got over my back injury, was able to get back into the gym and get a little more regular. And I'd kind of put on a little bit of weight with a little bit of the, stress eating that I was doing. I wasn't doing a huge amount of stress eating. It wasn't like I was going and getting a whole lot of platter from Taco Bueno or anything like that. It was just I was eating out too much. And breakfast, I would eat breakfast out on my way through Chick-fil-A, those kinds of things. And I kept thinking in my mind, well, I'm doing the iCoach plate. Well, if you're not exercising with it and you're not putting all the tenets to it, it's like a two-legged table. It's not going to be balanced and you're not going to be balanced. And so I put on a little weight and we were having this conversation. And I was really upset and I was really frustrated. And I was like, I feel like I need to cut my calories. I just, if I gain another 3 pounds, I can't get my clothes. And you were like, fine, cut your calories. I don't care. Just be consistent. You're all over the place. I'd be really good with calories 1 week, horrible the next week, good for 2 weeks, awful for 3 or 4 days. And you were like, you just have to be consistent, find some consistency. And I remember after that meeting, I drove home and was crying because I just realized I have become uncoachable, right? I'm throwing my money away. I've become uncoachable. I'm just checking off boxes. I'm not really truly buying into it. I'm just going through the steps, the motions, right? And so that night, I just decided I'm going to go buy the groceries. I'm going to start pre-planning. I'm going to start cooking. And since then, I've been much more consistent. It was just like the brain fog lifted, and it was like, I need to be consistent. If I want to reach my goals, I have to have some consistency at least 80% of the time. Now, once school was out, so we didn't cut my calories, we stayed at the level we were, but I became more consistent and things began to work a little better. Then when school was out, I was like, okay, I've got about 60, 70 days that I am not stressed out. I'm in control of my own schedule. I decide, when I work out, when I get up, all those kinds of things, so I can sleep as long as I need. I'm not having to get up at 4 a.m. to go work out before I go to work. So we did cut my calories back. And I feel like I have, with the exception of vacation, have been much more consistent with that. And I've seen a lot of body composition changes. My clothes are fitting better. We also made the decision not to weigh on the scale anymore, because every time I would gain a half pound or an ounce or whatever, I was freaking out and just wanting to abandon the whole thing and go back to 1,200 calories, right? So that was very helpful too, getting rid of the scale. Really helpful. I would consistently stayed with my workouts. I consistently stayed pretty close within my calorie range, was much more successful. And I feel like after doing that and kind of proving to myself, right, that I could do this, because that was a big frustration for me, a big disappointment. I couldn't understand how someone as disciplined and organized as I was could not be disciplined, right? Well, I never really gave it a chance because I was just going through the motions. There's a difference in going through the motions and then internalize what you're learning. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, so, as of now, I'm back into my clothes fitting comfortably. I definitely can tell a change in my body composition. Things look better, things fit better, but I'm not stepping on a scale, and I probably will. I probably won't step on a scale for the rest of my life, to be really honest, unless I go to the doctor, and then I might close my eyes. So.
Well, hey, look, I mean, I think first off with the scale, again, it's just an awareness thing, right? The scale is literally a piece of metal or a piece of plastic with batteries in it, right? It either serves you or it doesn't. There's a million other ways to measure progress, as we've learned, right? But I think that, that one call, and this is something that, as a coach, I've had these types of things quite a bit of times over the last decade, right? Which is, this coming to Jesus moment, if you will, right? Like there just comes a time where you realize, right, that you're either following through with the things that you say that you're going to do, or you're not. And it's really easy in that moment to use the blame game and to blame somebody else or the situation or the stress or whatever it is that's going on, right? It's really, really hard to take extreme ownership and to go all in on your situation, right? And so in this situation, it's like, well, we definitely got to give ourselves grace, because you're sitting here thinking to yourself, I'm such a disciplined person, why can't I figure this out? But you're also working twice as much as what you've ever done in your whole life because of COVID. You've never experienced COVID in the 40 years of teaching, right? And so it's like the demands. I mean, there are 100% people that I work with where I'm like, look, your job is a huge reason why you are not living a healthy lifestyle, right? And there's seasons, obviously, with certain jobs and different things like that, and everybody's got the stress of it. But that was something we had to definitely give you grace with, because it's something you had never experienced in your whole career of teaching, right? Everybody in the world was under stress, right? So it was a very stressful time there. But it's also easy to let that turn into not doing the things that you actually have control over, right?
Right. You have to come to the decision of, it's my choice. I have power over this. I either choose to do what I need to do, or I don't. And if I choose not to, why am I spending this money? I'm uncoachable. So it did come down to personal responsibility. I could continue to blame my back injury. I could continue to blame COVID, work, job loss, all those things. But when it comes down to it, it is personal responsibility. It is your choice. And so you either make the choice or you don't.
100%. And, I would say over the last 11 years or whatever of coaching over 1,000 people one-on-one, I would argue that if you're consistently doing the things that you actually have control over, right, and you're really minimizing the things that are self-sabotaging your goals, well, you end up getting the results that you want, right?
Right.
I mean, the timeline is typically indicative as to how consistent you be there, right? But it's very rare that, like, say for example, with those 5 big rocks I always talk about, right? With your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise, your hydration, your stress management. Most of those things, like, we actually do have control over that. Those things fall into that, hey, focus on things that you actually have control over 80% or more of the time, right? The things like COVID and the job and the work stress and some of the, like, that falls into that 20% bucket of try to spend 20% or less of your time on things that you don't have control over, right? And if you can have that perspective and you have that balance, and also remind yourself that, hey, this is just a season of life, this is not going to be like this forever, right? Well, then hopefully that allows you to scale back, right, to more of a place of maintenance on your health, right? Because you do have all these other things that are pulling at you, right? But you don't fall off completely, right? And that's the biggest difference. People are either all in or they're all out, right? And we got to find the balance in between, because all out, that's when it's really, really a problem. When you're in kind of that balance and you can maintain, that's a much better place, because now you don't feel like you're constantly starting and stopping. You're just going from, hey, gas on the pedal to slowing down, right? And it's just like driving a car. That's a perfect example, right? There's sometimes where you speed up, there's sometimes where you slow down, there's sometimes where you stop, right? But we've got to make sure that we just keep moving forward, because living a healthy lifestyle, that never stops. There's no end date on it.
Right. And that's what I was looking for. And that's the main thing that I've gotten out of this, consistent with workout, consistent with 80-20 lifestyle. That means I don't have to be perfect 24/7, right? So that pressure's off of me. That pressure, teachers have this tendency to want to be perfect, right? That perfection in us. So, if I have pancakes at breakfast, 20% of the time, that's okay. I'm not going to mess anything up, right? So, that's the thing. I've never had as healthy of a relationship with food as I do right now. And that is the biggest gift. I have struggled since I was 20-ish, right? With unhealthy relationship with food. I can blame it on a whole host of things, but I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. And part of that perfection in me, I use food to either reward or control, either the intake or the lack of intake, right? So, and I was thinking back when I was at my best weight, I never really felt good, because I wasn't taking in enough calories, or I was getting rid of the calories I was taking in as part of the bulimic and anorexic, right? Not always being on a restricted diet. My workouts, they were hard, and it was a hard lifestyle. At first, when I went on this and started working with you, I was like, this is so hard. It's so much easier when I was doing ideal protein and I just knew exactly what to do and when to do it. But now that I've gone through this process, I realized that was a bad way of thinking, because one, I had no energy on that diet. I was still getting up at 4 o'clock every morning, going and working out, but then I might have to come home and take a 3-hour nap because it really expended all my energy. I don't have that problem now. This summer, I'm still getting up early to go work out because I want to stay in that habit before when school starts, but I'm not coming home and taking a 3-hour nap. I'm actually getting things done. I'm actually being productive, right? Because even though I'm at a little bit lower calorie now, the food I'm putting in is better. The food I'm putting in is providing me with much more energy and feeling better, and those kinds of things. And one thing I've noticed this last 6 months, because I also have hormonal issues, right? And menopausal, and I do hormone replacement. Since going through this and coming to the end of it, I'm not having as much of a roller coaster ride with my hormones. the hormone replacement that I'm doing with the pellets seem to last a little bit longer, whereas before, they would last so long and then I'd have a huge dip, right? I would just kind of hit the wall. This last time, now that I've been consistent and have really, worked the program, the 80-20, I find that I'm not having that huge dip. I'm not hitting that wall. So I'm interested to see what my blood work's going to be here in a week or so, just to kind of see, what's happening with the hormone levels. My suspicion is with the workout, the weightlifting and things like that, that's helping with the testosterone levels. So that's my suspicion, but we will see. I don't know if that's true, but we will see. But I'm definitely not hitting that wall. I have not hit that wall because I'm due for my pellets. I have not hit that wall at all.
Wow. Well, it's amazing. I mean, look, I think that, the name, it all goes back to the name of the game, which is consistency, right? When you think about, even with here, what you just described, right? Well, if I'm on the roller coaster ride when it comes to sleep and nutrition and exercise and hydration and stress management, then, of course I'm going to be on a roller coaster ride with my hormones, right? But if I can start getting more consistent with these healthy habits, right? Not where it's a starting and stopping thing, but when it's a consistent thing, 80% of a 365-day year is, 270 plus days, right? So, I mean, again, that just gives you that perspective, right? As you don't have to be perfect, but the majority, we are a product, right? Us as human beings, we are a product of what we do the majority of the time, right? And that product comes from what we consume, right? Both from a food standpoint, from a news standpoint, podcast standpoint, information standpoint, environment standpoint, right? We're a product of our environment, right? So, I mean, I'm just excited for you in that, in the grand scheme of things here, 1 year is like nothing and compared to your whole life thus far, right? And so I would only expect all of this to improve more and more and more and more, right? As these years go on, right? I mean, you're literally just getting started with this, right? And I think that that's hopefully, where that's where the excitement and encouragement comes in even more, and I give you those examples, like shout out to, Susan and I always blank on that other lady's name, but the ladies here that, sit there and make these life transformations, at 50, 60 years old. Because, as we've talked about, and this is kind of the point I'll finish on, is there's so many people out there that are whatever age, 40, 50, 60, 70, like whatever, it doesn't even matter, that are just done, right? Like they don't exercise anymore. They don't prioritize their health. Like they blame everything on getting old or menopause or whatever it may be. And not to discount all of those things that are harder. And there's a lot of facts in that, I get it. But again, it goes back to what are the things that you actually have control over? What are the things you don't have control over? You're going to get older. There's something we can do about it, right? You're going to go through, if you're a female, like you're going to go through menopause. If you, whatever, right? You're going to get injured. These things are going to happen, right? But it all goes back to what am I doing the majority of the time? How am I living my life? What are the decisions that I'm making there? So can you maybe just talk on, for anybody out there that is maybe going through menopause right now, or, maybe somebody they've had injuries and that's kind of kept them out of the gym, really just, what's your mindset now on kind of where, where there's a will, there's a way. And, you don't have to be doing what you're doing in your 20s or 30s or whatever,
Right.
but you can still be healthy and active in those things,
Right.
Later into the years of life.
Right. Well, for me, working out, even at 62, if I don't, I am going to get stiff, right? Because I have a bad back, knees, I'm wrapped up like a mummy when I go work out, but I go. I'm going to get stiff. I'm not going to have movement. I'm going to be more tired, actually, and I'm going to feel more run down. So I do think that has definitely kept me younger. So I look at my friends who are my age who do not work out at all, and they struggle, right? They struggle with their knees. arthritis, things like that. And they have a hard time moving. I struggle with all those same things too. I do. I have arthritis. My knees are bad. My back is bad, but I do what I have to do and I modify. You know, I'm doing your exercise program. I can't do every exercise, but I can find an exercise I can do that will work that same muscle group. So what I find is I'm much more active. I'm able to move more. I don't have as much pain, you know? And I know it's going to be that way as I get older, you know, it's just, you're just going to have more aches and pains. So again, it goes back to that mindset. What do I want? What is your why? What is my why? My why is to live on this earth a really long time so I can be a really good nana, right? My goal is to be healthy. Both my parents were very unhealthy. My mother died young. My father struggled the last years of his life with his health and being in continuous pain. I can't give in to that. I can't give in to that pain. I can't give in to that arthritis. I have to keep moving forward. I follow Train with Joan. There's several other people that are my age or older that I follow that have this mindset, you know, and they say the same things. I have all the aches and pains of everybody else, but I can't let the old woman in. If I want to have a quality of life, like I said, I've lived more than I have life left. But if I want that to be quality, I have to keep moving. It has to be a priority. And for me, working out in the morning, doing aerobics in the morning, I have a much better mental attitude for the rest of the day. You know, I do my aerobics and my weightlifting in the morning now, but when school starts, I'll still do my aerobics in the morning, but I'm going to have to move my weightlifting to after school. Well, I'm going to have to make that commitment no matter how tired I am, because if I stop moving, if I stop working those muscles, if I don't keep those joints lubricated by moving, then I'm going to really hurt. I'm really going to hurt all over. So I just can't give into it.
Well, I think that it's one of those things, right, where we're a human being, right? Our bodies, they want daily movement, and there's a lot of different ways to achieve that. But you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you don't know how good you can feel until you feel that way. And this is a perfect example in that, yeah, you might still have all these aches and pains and whatnot, but you feel better than these other people do because of these things that you prioritize, right? I mean, let's be honest. If I took person A and person B, same age, right? One person's prioritizing their sleep, nutrition, exercise, hydration, stress management. The other person's not. Who do you think is going to feel better, look better, and perform better? Right? And I think that's something that everybody could agree with there. So I love it. I think, and, you know, not even to mention, right? I mean, we've talked about it before. There's the whole, other side of it too, the mental side of it, the emotional side of it, for the mental health, right? And what that aspect can do for us. I mean, I joke all the time, if I haven't been in the gym and around the 3-day mark or so, that's when my wife is like, you need to go work out or something. You're a little, you just need to go, right? So it's like, it is very much so mental health for me. I know that if I'm not prioritizing moving my body and training specifically for me, like the strength training is something that, really does that and gives me that stimulus. I'm just not right mentally there. So it can become something that's a superpower, right? But it's all in perspective, right? Is this something that you have to do, or is this something that you get to do? Right? Because being able to look at it like that, especially on those days when you don't want to work out, right, which we all have, that really changes the game, right? Because there's plenty of people out there that would love to get to work out and they can't, and so perspective is everything. And so Gay, I want to respect your time here. I probably could chat with you all day, but I want to kind of wrap this whole podcast and journey up into and one more question. There's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of diets. There's a lot of programs. There's so many different things that are out there these days, right? But if you're somebody that has struggled with nutrition, with your weight, with exercise, living a healthy lifestyle, whatever, kind of your whole life, right? And we're in a similar situation, maybe like you were, right? What's kind of your advice for somebody that is on the fence in terms of working one-on-one with the coach? Because, especially for those that are older, like y'all grew up on, hey, here's a meal plan, good luck, right? So to sit here and think that, oh, I got to invest, $2,000 or whatever into one-on-one coaching, that can be scary. That can seem like a lot of money, like all of these things for people. So what's kind of your advice on that?
Jump in and do it, because it will change your life in the fact that you will be able to maintain a healthy lifestyle for the rest of your life, and it can improve your life. Some people think when they get to a certain age, that they just might as well throw in the towel, right? That it can't be done. Things can't change for me, because I felt that way. I thought once I hit menopause, nothing's ever going to help me. I'm always going to feel this way. Nothing can change. And that's kind of how I felt after Ideal Protein. Well, why should I take a chance on this? Because is this really going to be the answer? I actually broke down and cried before I signed up with you, because I was like, I cannot go down another rabbit hole. I just can't do it. I mentally, physically, mentally cannot do it. And Wilmer just really encouraged me, right, to go ahead and sign up and to do it, and that there would be nothing lost from it, that I couldn't lose any more than I had already lost as far as, nutrition and things like that. So it will make a difference. You may not go back to looking like you did when you were 21, but you'll sure feel like you did when you were 21, right? Mentally, because me getting up and doing that workout in the morning, it completely changes my whole trajectory for the day mentally. I don't have depression. I don't get down. I don't get frustrated. I don't get angry. On the days that I skip that workout for whatever reason, I have those issues. So take the jump. You have absolutely nothing to lose, because you've already done all those other things. It cannot be any worse than that, right? But the surprise of it is it'll be so much better. So just do it.
Wow. What a testimony, my friend. It's so cool. This is why I love doing these podcasts, right? Because number one, you get to reflect back through the journey. But number two, it's just cool for me to listen to you and listen to the growth. What I should do is probably record the first coaching call we ever have together, right? And then record the last one, and then that way you can like kind of compare side to side. But that's my favorite part about coaching people, right? Is seeing the transformation, right? And transformation by definition does not always mean physical. It does not always mean emotional or mental. It can be all of them. It can be one or the other. Like transformations can be so many different things, right? But I think being able, as a coach, to be able to see people transform their life, right? And get them to be able to start living their life in a way that they've been saying that they want to do, but maybe there was just a lack of awareness or education or whatever it was that kind of prevented them from being able to do that. And so now it's like, with graduating from iCoach University, it's like, all right, you have the education, you have the tools, you have the skill set, right? You have the confidence to be able to go and live a healthy lifestyle. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, of course it is. It's still hard for me. And I've been doing this for half my life, right? Like it's always going to be hard, but right? Choose your hard, right? It's hard to do this,
yes,
right? But it's even harder to not do this.
To do the other, because you won't feel good. I do want to say one thing about 63 or 62 and feeling like you're 21. I went to Florida this summer and I paddleboard, right? And all my friends were like, oh my gosh, why are you doing that? And it was just like, well, one, I can. I've always wanted to do it. And the water was really rough and rocky. I was able to maintain my balance. I had enough strength to do it. We really loved it. And it's not only things like that, but it's all kinds of activities to living that active lifestyle that is so much better than being 62 sitting on the couch. I still want to be able to do those. And if you take the plunge and do this, you'll be able to do it too.
Wow. I love that. That's awesome. I mean, that's really what it, that's what motivates me, right? I mean, that's what this is all about. You want to prioritize living a healthy lifestyle so that you can do anything in life that you want to do, right? I mean, for some people, maybe they want to paddleboard. For some people, I have a client that's 63 that's about to go hike up to base camp Everest.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, for some people, they love this stuff. For other people, they don't, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, whether it's playing with your grandchildren or being able to paddleboard or whatever it may be, right? Being able to just keep working out so you have that mental health or have that morning routine that helps you thrive for your day, right? It's just that it is something that is such a helpful skill set to have. And it's something that for most people, you did not learn growing up. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's why I say it's a skill set, no different than developing any other skill set out there. And I would argue that this skill set is probably one of the most important skill sets that you can ever develop, because it helps you to really establish that foundation that allows you to thrive in all those other areas of life. Right. As I always say, it's like the strength that's gained in the gym transfers out into every other area of life.
Oh,
right.
Yes.
So I love it. I love it. Well, this podcast has been amazing, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time. And for the listeners, I hope that y'all get so much out of this. Make sure y'all comment here with any questions or comments or whatnot. But Gabe, really appreciate you taking the time today to do this. And I know that it's going to serve quite a few people there. And I hope that it adds value into everybody's life that gets an opportunity to listen to this. So thank you again for taking the time.
Anytime. Loved it.